one is known by a few different names, but he's either called the lowland tapir, the Brazilian tapir, or sometimes the South American tapir. So they have a few different names. But they are actually the second smallest of the tapirs. So the smallest one is actually called a mountain tapir, and mountain tapir are a lot darker in colour than these guys, and they actually have quite thicker fur. So they are sometimes known as the woolly tapir. But one of the main things they actually have is, you can see round Timoko's mouth, he has got a little bit of white round his mouth, but the mountain tapir have a really big bit of white, and the best way to actually describe them is they look like they've been eating ice cream because they're so dark, and then they have that white bit round there. Then it's these guys. So these guys are super special because they are actually the only tapir to have this bit on the back of their neck. So this is called a mantle muscle, and looks a little bit like a Mohican. So that is how you tell these guys apart, and I will tell you what they use that for a little later. Then the next one up is called a Baird's tapir. So Baird's tapir, again, are very similar colour to these guys, do look quite similar, but they just don't have this, so they look a little bit strange to me. And then the biggest one at the top is called the Malayan tapir, and probably the one that you've seen before, the most striking one. So they are actually black and white. So the three smaller species are actually from South America, and then the biggest one is from Malaysia, and from that sort of way. So as you can see, they've got a bit of a big dinner, so they actually get this amount of food twice a day, and then they also get a feed in between as well. But they have a very varied diet, and they can eat quite a lot of different things. So you'll notice as he's sort of pushing around in there that he will sort of grab the reds and oranges first, and the reason for that is we don't really give them very much fruit, because the fruit that we have is very, very high in sugar. So we need to really protect their waistline and their teeth and things like that. So we give them a lot of vegetables. So the vegetables, again, are still very sweet. So that's why they go for the red peppers and the sweet potato and things like that, because it is super, super sweet for them. So they do really enjoy that. And then you'll notice that they have lots of pellet as well. So the pellet is there because out in the wild they would eat lots and lots of browse. So that is lots of plant matter. So in total they could eat around 30 kg. The streamlined head would go bashing through the forest, and everything else, their big old bottom would just come smashing through behind. So there are actually pictures of tapirs with jaguar scratches on where they've actually managed to knock them off, which is really, really cool. Sitting outside our male white lion, Tamara actually weighs more than him, so she is very heavy indeed. Like I said, she has to be super heavy and super stocky, because out in the wild these guys would actually be solitary animals, and if she had a baby she would actually have to look after her. Out here where we've got all of our sticks and log piles and stuff, nothing really has any bark on it. That's because they do eat things like bark as well, not just the leaves, they will bark it, and they'll also eat things like aquatic plants and pretty much anything they can get their nose on. So going back to this bit on the back of their neck, so does anyone know or have any idea who might try and predate these guys? So who might try and eat them?
Jaguar.
Jaguar, yes, you are correct. So jaguars are very small compared to these guys. They're very small in size, so they should not take down a healthy tapir, but they will take down a sick, injured, young, or anything like that. But our guys should be super safe because they are so healthy. But jaguars actually hunt quite differently to most cats. So most cats actually go for under their neck. And the reason that they do that is to actually suffocate their prey. But jaguars are a little bit different. They actually go for the back of the neck. And the reason that they do that is to actually take out the vertebrae in the back of their neck to paralyse their prey, so that they don't have to use up lots of energy. So these guys have actually adapted over a long period of time, and they have actually got this. So this is extremely hard, and a lot of people think it is actually bone, but it is actually just muscle. So if a jaguar was to jump on the back of their neck here, they wouldn't actually paralyse them at all because it is a lot higher. So actually their vertebrae is down here, so it is a lot higher, so it wouldn't actually do anything for them. But obviously if a jaguar was to jump on their back, that's just going to make the tapirs angry. And a lot of people think that these guys are super slow and they look like they are very, you know, weak and feeble, but these guys are super strong and they can actually run very, very fast. So these guys can get... She is actually around 230 kilos. So females are always slightly larger. And the reason for that is that she has to look after her baby. But 230 kilos, if people aren't sure what that is converted to, around into stone, it's around 30. But that is really good for biodiversity because you've seen how much Tomoko has eaten, and we haven't taken out any seeds of that. So if they were to go to the toilet in the water, obviously that's going to get washed downstream and replanted up onto the banks. So they are basically really large seed dispersers. So that actually does really help with biodiversity and actually replanting so many plants, which is really cool. Unfortunately, these guys aren't doing brilliant out in the wild, and this species is actually vulnerable. But the other 3 species are all actually endangered, and that is due to habitat loss, unfortunately, and also things like fragmentation. So that means that basically parts are being cut down and then something's been built in the middle, so tapirs can't actually get to each other. A lot of these guys are actually being hit by lorries as well, which is really, really difficult because that actually causes a lot of human-animal conflict because those lorries do cost a lot of money, and obviously the tapirs are amazing as well, so it's really difficult. But there are a few things that you can do to help. So when you are consuming palm oil, it is pretty much in everything, but you can look at actually if it's sustainable. So if you are going to eat palm oil, just make sure it is sustainable. One of the other things you can do is, if you are buying very often, but if they really do feel threatened, they will use it. You can see that Tomoko here is making short work of that sweet potato. When he does eat all this food, you'll notice, actually looking out onto the paddock,